What do you do when your drugs stop working for a gut disease? Crohn's, colitis, IBS, celiac, gastritis. I'm going to show you what I did to get out of my gut flare when my drug stopped working, and this has worked for many other people. I also have a 13-day protocol that goes into much more detail. My free instant webinar in the bio link is a free mini version of this. When my gut flare was at its worst, I could not get out of bed. I had diarrhea 10, 20 times a day. I was also vomiting. I couldn't eat anything. I was rapidly losing weight and I was in horrible pain. I had a horrible fever, and this is all while taking my drugs. And I'd even increased the dosage, but nothing was working. So this graph right here shows what's going on. And these discoveries were made by a brilliant German doctor. His name was Dr. Hammer. Gut disease starts after a traumatic event. And this traumatic event actually scars our brain. And he could look at your brain CT scan and know exactly which part of your gut was going in and out of overdrive. When we get hit with that shock, we go into a conflict active phase. And the gut goes into overdrive, but you don't really notice the symptoms yet. But then when the conflict gets resolved, the body has to heal what happened in overdrive. So usually it's cell proliferation, develop extra gut cells to help us digest and absorb this important thing to our survival. It's usually a boyfriend or a girlfriend or money, something with school. But when that conflict gets resolved, the body starts to get rid of these extra gut cells, and that is when we start to get symptoms. We go into a rest and digest phase. Most drugs used to treat gut disease, it's either going to be an antibiotic or a stimulant. So the more stimulants somebody takes, it kind of puts the brakes a little bit. It takes the edge off of this recovery phase. And then when the gut cells are removed, the body needs to push the water out of the tissue, and we have something called the epicrisis. And then this is when someone has a fever and their symptoms seem to feel the worst. This is when people really get scared. People get scared when the conflict first gets resolved and here. And then once we get through that, it goes into the scarring phase. Now, where things turn bad is if the conflict isn't fully resolved or the conflict keeps on relapsing or happening again. So like, let's say somebody is in a toxic, romantic relationship, and it's always on, off, on, off. It's always putting the gut in and out of overdrive, in and out of overdrive, in and out of overdrive. Now, we can take drugs to help manage the symptoms, but the ultimate driving factor in your symptoms is that conflict and its subconscious PTSD triggers that were formed during the conflict shock. Drugs don't put Crohn's and colitis into remission. The only thing that can put somebody into remission is getting their conflict fully under control on a conscious and subconscious level. I walk people through this process in my 13-day protocol. It shows you everything that I wish, somebody would have told me when my GI doctor was like, hey, let's switch medications. And I'm like researching these medications, and I'm like, there's literally nothing different between this and that. They're both stimulant. How is this going to change anything? Like, you're not even taking an educated guess on how to help me. I've not heard you once try to guess what the root cause was. And it's even more pathetic that you don't know the root cause, because doctors before the 1970s, they all knew if somebody showed up to the ER, they knew a traumatic event was lurking in the shadows somewhere. And many of the times, the patients would be like, oh yeah, no, nothing's stressing me out. But if they dug enough and they were patient enough, they would always find that traumatic event that put the gut in and out of overdrive. And if they helped the person resolve that traumatic event and diffuse its PTSD triggers, then the person would get better. I help people do that with my 13-day protocol, but in my bio link, I have a free instant webinar that is everything I wish somebody would have told me when my drug stopped working and I had no idea how to get my symptoms under control.